Hi, I just want to show you these, what I call the claw landing gear or the high-rise landing gear that Multi-rotor now offer as a an option which the owner of this Vampire has elected to go for. I'm just going to show you quickly how they go together and some of the options with them. The legs themselves, there's two different versions, two different legs. And they come in the version with the metal studs, and then there's another one that doesn't have metal studs. Okay, they sell as pairs, so for 4 legs you have to buy 2 pairs. And you also need to buy the boom clamps, and again you get enough clamps in a pack to do 1 set of legs. So if you want to do all 4 legs, you need to buy 2 sets of boom clamps as well, as the screws are not cooperating with me. Okay. Alright, so basically the first thing you want to do with these, you can actually make them mount up different ways. So the first thing you want to do is grab yourself a pair of clamps and fit them onto a leg. Alright, you use the longest screws that come with the kit to do so, and you've got 2 halves, a top and a bottom-ish. They've got lots of little screws on them and stuff. So what you want to do is just sit it around the leg, and black on black is so easy to see on camera, and pop, yep, a long 3mm screw in. Now we're going into plastic here, so you don't use Loctite. And you need 2 of these brackets per leg. So 1, not worried about tightening it up at this point in time, and 2. I'm actually going to show you how all this works side on, just so you can get an idea. Alright, so one thing I like to do is make sure they're all evenly spaced around the outside, so I tend to make myself up a little cardboard template or something, a little spacer. If I'm going for an inboard mount, I make a spacer that sits against that. If I'm going for a more outboard mount, I make a spacer that goes up against the motor mount so that I get all the little brackets the same space out. Now, okay, saddles are on. Now we have some choices. If you want to go for a high stance, okay, you leave the brackets with the screws facing up, and you bolt using those screws. You bolt it on, the leg on like so, which gives you a high stance. And you can go for an outboard curve or an inboard curve. You can go for slightly out. So if you use this hole instead of this hole, you can sort of make it stick out a little bit more as opposed to a little bit squarer. Basically you've got some options to play with. Or, what I reckon looks the best, but no good if you've got a high gimbal, if you go for the low ride. And what you do with the low ride is you flip the inboard one upside down. So the screws would actually be on the bottom, and then you can go either that way, or you can go slightly higher that way, and that's the one I prefer to do. Right, so basically you grab your mid-size screws. Here's the tricky bit. Of course, yes, there is a left and a right to these. Basically, when you're finished, you need these metal studs on the outside. So, doing it this way, this becomes this side. So I grab my medium-sized screws. There we go, through that, into think it's hard to see on camera, it's not that actually easy to see in person. So I'm going to pop a screw in there, and I'm going to pop a screw in here. I've got all these clamps very loose at the moment because you need to actually sort of be able to play with the distance between the brackets. Okay, so I'm going to tighten these up just snug, not too tight at this point in time. Okay, so that's that side. Now we're going to flip it around so it's easy to do. I love these skids because you can actually fold them up for transport. You just have to loosen off the saddles and you can just pivot the things around and the whole airframe just packs flatter. You don't actually have to take them off to get a flat pack as such. Whoops, wrong screw. Those instead. And we do this side. And that one up. And then comes the fun bit. Fun, tricky, what actually makes them very rigid and very stable. It's got to do with that start. Now I'm actually going to play with this upside down, so you might be able to see it a bit better. But what we do is they also come with some short screws. And the last step is to grab a couple of the short screws, squeeze the tips together and put the 2 screws through the tip. That's why you had to have it the right way around, so that these studs ended up on the outside of one side. And that's my leg done. And now I can pivot it around to be the right way up and use a spacer to set it the same distance out. Cool thing is you can have them as a wide stance, move them right out so that foot is under the motor. You can even go out so far as that the foot is actually wider than the motor, so you've actually got some propeller protection with the foot. I actually prefer to fly with them really close inboard myself. I just find it's a little less mass towards the outside of the arms. Gives you a bit more flingability, but it's entirely up to you how you space them and the look you get with them. So that's the low rider look. You can have the high rider look, you can have it curving out, curving in, you can have it curving right out, you can have it curving right out in the high stance. So again, the foot is actually under the motor, ends up down here somewhere. So you can actually get quite a bit of motor protection out of doing them. But I think, especially on the Vampire, they just look so hot. So I'm going to finish fitting those off, and that's just a quick video to show you about these legs specifically, and then I'll come back and my next video that I'll be doing will be finishing off this Vampire build.